Hello, welcome to UCBA. My name is Shelley Buswell. We meet the second Thursday of every month, and we try to plan things that are helpful to you, and also us. We learn something new every time we come. This month, big shout out to Mike Schaefer. He's sitting here. He's our swarm coordinator. And how many hives have you?
How many swarms have I
Yeah.
had? I think I have divvied out close to 25 this year. As
And-
opposed,
Thank you.
as opposed to like the 3 to 5 I had last year. I mean, it is just,
It's amazing this year.
yeah.
It's busting. We
Yeah.
have lots of bees.
And that doesn't include a couple that I've actually helped on individuals who have, it's their own hive that has swarmed, and I've helped them catch their own swarm. So there's probably been about 4 of those. So I'm almost up to 30 swarms if you really want to look at it that direction.
Why
Plus-
do you think there's so many?
Mild winter
Mild winter.
and a lot of people getting into beekeeping.
Okay, more bees
So-
around?
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
last year we didn't have a lot of swarms, so because the weather was so screwy.
yeah.
So they may have stayed in their hives and got way big over the winter, and who knows?
Yeah.
Are you tracking locations so we know which part of the county is?
Well,
Not really.
was it last Friday? Last Thursday or Friday?
Lehigh was.
Lehigh was busting. North Lehigh, Northeast Lehigh was busting nuts, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, we do know that that was,
And yeah, and this doesn't include any of the ones that go out on Facebook that I don't ever see.
right.
And that's happened a lot, so.
So he has the patience of Job because he's gotten tons of phone call. He makes tons of phone calls trying to get a hold of people that are on the swarm list to get them out. And so, anyway, thank
If
you,
you have
Mike.
not added my phone number to your phone and don't realize that it's me calling and like,
You're gonna miss
I'm
out,
gonna ignore
yeah.
this phone call. I've got 2 individuals that are almost been blacklisted on the swarm list. Because I keep calling them and nobody answers ever or returns a phone call.
Sad, huh?
Yeah.
They're missing out, especially this year, lots of bees. We have some extra frames back there. They're mediums from our group buy. There's 10 of them. If anybody's interested, they're $3.28 a piece. Jen, raise your hand. Jen is our secretary treasurer. She will help you.
So, oh.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Done.
Also is Cole Davis here.
We should put that up there as an auction.
Cole, do you want these patties?
Yeah, sorry, I've been.
Okay, I was just gonna say, if you weren't here, we were gonna sell these patties, so these are yours, and did you already pay the woman? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I get them out of my house. We'll be posting a questionnaire, so that you can tell us what you need help with. One of the things that people need is mentors. So Ron here is a mentor on the east side of Utah County, and Caleb is not here yet, and he's on the west side. I have been out to several people's hives to help them. Ron, you were saying that you're first gonna, when they call and need help, it's, are you a member? So it's a benefit of being a member to get that. But also, we need people that are experienced. If you've got a couple of years under your belt and you feel like you can help somebody look, some people just need reassurance, looking in their hive and saying, is this what I'm seeing? And going through that. So please jump in and be helpful and be a mentor, be part of our group.
I keep track of those that I mentor, so next year, when I get a call, I'll call them to go mentor.
Good idea. You're smart. Yeah, our board isn't huge, and each person in the board kind of has an assignment, and they do great in their assignments, but we do need other people to help us to make UCBA a good group for all of us. Next month, our state inspector, Jenna Crowder, is coming. I think you guys will, if you weren't here last year, really be interested in her presentation, and she is a great person to ask questions about bees. She knows bees and about bees in Utah, diseases and what we're looking at in Utah.
Now, one thing about that is, if you register with the state, on the Utah.gov agriculture, whatever site it is, it's $10 for a year. And then she'll come out to your place and she'll do a complete hive inspection, she'll counsel with you, she'll spend as much time as you want with her. That's a very
Teaching you
valuable-
about being in that hive and
For $10 a year, and she'll
And-
come as many times as you want.
I think we get a little paranoid thinking it's government, right? The conspiracy, and do we really want the government in our hive and telling us what's going on?
She's
But
great.
they're not like that. Jenna is not like that. Your
I was
question?
gonna say, yeah, that I've had them come to my hive before and it's super helpful. In fact, they gave me when they came like a little screen to make a.
Yeah,
Yep.
we've got one,
shaker.
yep.
And then the other thing is, if there ever is an issue with your bees, they have the authority to come and compensate them if you're not registered, is what I was told.
That's correct.
So,
What's her name, Jenna?
I don't think
Jenna
they're.
Jenna Crowder. The other benefit is that you get email notices from the state, such as last year, there was an outbreak of foul brood in Utah County. And so we got a notice from the state about that so that you could keep an eye on your bees to make sure that there wasn't anything going on with your bees. So it's good to get those kind of notifications. Tonight, our in-service is given by the last few years, President Ron Peterson. We're going to be talking about mites. We're coming out of winter. Mites are an issue. We usually treat going into winter, and then when we start coming out of winter, especially when we're building up drone cells, the mites become very active and big. I went out and helped one of our last year BAB kids, Levi, out in Eagle Mountain yesterday, and he and I've got grandma eyes, I could visibly see mites on his bees. Kind of freaked me out a little bit that I could see them.
I've
So,
never seen them on beach.
oh, then I just am like, Levi, we can do a mite count, or we need to treat regardless because we can see them. But yeah, so they are an issue, and Ron's going to talk all things mites, and then we'll have question and answer at the end. I put a poster together at the back about wasps and ants. Katriana de Witt, if I'm saying her name correctly, she's from Germany. She's nationally renowned as a bee scientist. She gets invited to speak nationally at different bee groups. She has been to Utah. She's posted on our website a couple of times. These are her recommendations on how to treat wasps and ants. Really quickly on the wasps, it's very simple. Buy a can of wet cat food. She likes the seafood brand the best, just a little can. And then you get the,
Is it boric acid?
no. Don't rub that in.
I think I know where you're going with this, but
What is the stuff up there? It's command. It is for, what are those things that crawl that, oh my, roaches, thank you. Anyway, so you get a Dixie cup, plastic Dixie cup, put just a couple of spoonfuls of that in the Dixie cup, take the
Cat food.
cat food, just a couple of spoonfuls in the Dixie cup, and then you take the command and swirl it around in there, fork it in, mix it up. Wasps love protein. They will go into that Dixie cup and take that protein and take it back to the hive to kill the brood and the queen. That's what we want. It is not toxic to your animals. She has all the science behind it. Also, I like the hanging thing. You can take the Dixie cup, poke holes in it, hang it up near your hives. The bees will not bother it. They are not attracted to protein. Ants, cinnamon works on sugar ants. Does not work on the big black ants. Jen, cornmeal. I looked it up. The research out of University of Texas is cornmeal is a myth. It does not kill your ants. Diatomaceous earth will work, but it also, if it gets with your bees, it will kill your bees. So be discriminate in where you're putting that. So her recommendation, and I've got it up there, is a little, Terry, can you see what kind of ant, down by the ants, what it's called? It's called taro.
I don't see it.
It's that little plastic thing.
Gum wrapper.
Oh, that.
I think it's called taro. Is it taro? Anyway, it's just a little liquid ant bait. The bees are not attracted to it. I break the little end of it. I set it down by my beehives and takes care of ants. So That's her recommendation and it's worked for me. All right, up to you, Ron. Thank you.
It's called liquid ant bait.
Okay,
Liquid ant bait.
take a look at it.
So I just am curious, who's here for the first time? Oh, this is great. This is really good. Okay, my name's Ron Peterson. I've been a beekeeper, I think starting my 6th year. So I'm relatively new. We've got some people here that are a lot more advanced and more experienced than I am as a beekeeper. But the one thing you'll come to learn about us beekeepers is that you can ask all of us, well, you can take 10 of us and ask their opinion, and you'll get 20 different answers. So beekeeping is not an exact science. It's something that you can learn and grow and enjoy and do your own thing, and bees are pretty resilient. They'll survive. I'm perfect proof of that because I've experimented with a lot of different stuff with my bees. Tonight we're going to talk about mites. If I have anything in my life that I hate, it's mites. And you've got to be able to manage them. And I've got a friend out in Tooele who was actually my mentor when I first started doing bees. And he is one who believes in organic beekeeping. And so he doesn't treat his mites. But he buys bees every year because his bees never survive the winter. And so you can be an organic beekeeper and not treat mites, but that's not only bad for your own hive, but it's bad for all your neighbor hives as well. Because those bees that are loaded with mites go to a plant, deposit the mites, your bee goes to that plant, picks those mites up and brings them back to your hive. So mites are something that have got to be controlled. This is a drone brood. For some reason, the mites like drone brood more than they like the worker bee brood. And so you can actually decap drone brood and pull out the larva, and you can see the mites on that drone brood. There's some people, that's the way they monitor how many mites they've got in the hive. So we're going to talk about different ways to do that. So apparently, there we go. No, so is everybody familiar when we're talking about varroa mites?
What they are.
They're mites.
They're a mite, and
We don't want them on the bees.
and you don't want them on your bees. That's exactly right. So the health of a hive can be determined by the amount of mites you've got in your hive, and it doesn't matter where you live, it's a universal threat to everybody. And I already talked about being treatment-free, but there are many types of different miticides that you can use to treat your mites. I've experimented with most of them. The last 2.5 years I've stuck with one, and we'll talk about that. So varroa mites feed on the host, leading to varrosis, a parasitic disease. And varrosis weakens the bee's immune system to where it'll actually kill your hive. Yes, ma'am?
So is this a problem worldwide or just in North America?
I think it's worldwide.
The only place is Australia.
Australia doesn't have them?
Yeah, correct. So far.
Is Hawaii also?
No, I think Hawaii still has them
Hawaii has
too.
them?
They came from Asia, so I would imagine Hawaii has them.
Yeah. The problem with mites, though, is that mites transfer diseases from hive to hive. And another thing that's unique about mites, when you test for mites, well, we'll get into that a little later, because we're going to talk about testing. So when to treat for mites. How many of you are treating your mites all the time? When you say all the time, how are you treat? Do you treat them twice a year, 3 times a year, in the spring, in the fall, twice a year?
When I check.
When you check?
This year I'm checking actually monthly, like I was recommended to do. Last year, maybe I checked maybe every 3 months.
This year, I'm gonna check monthly, I'm really on top of it, and 2 out of my 7 hives had 3 or 4 mites, and so I treated those 2 hives. All the others had 0. It's because I treated last year.
Yeah,
So I
that's,
just
that's,
stayed on
that's
top of it.
very good. You've got to stay on top of it. And we'll talk about how I treat mine when we get to that point. So, a lot of beekeepers treat just twice a year. They treat in the spring, because they're coming out of winter, and then they treat in the fall. That's been the recommendation for a long time. Some people use a calendar method, and that's what I just talked about. They treat in the spring and in the fall. They don't really look at any other way. They just do the calendar method. There's the mite count method, where you visually look for your mites to see how you can, the percentage of mites in your hive. Some is by uncapping the brood and pulling 100 of those drone brood out, and then counting the mites on the drone brood. Has any of you done that? That would be a horrendous amount of time. Yeah. Some people use the sticky board method. How about sticky board? Anybody try the sticky board? Shelley does the sticky board. A lot of people will use the alcohol or the soap wash method. And then the one I prefer to use is the sugar roll, powdered sugar. You can find mites in a lot of different ways. So since nobody's doing the uncapping of drone, we're not going to do that. The sticky board method is just basically you take a piece of graph paper, put some Crisco or something on that that's sticky. You put it in the bottom of your hive. You leave it there for, how about 3 days?
Yeah.
Pull it out, and because of the graph, you can see how many mites you've got that have fallen onto the sticky paper, and that'll give you an idea of mites in your hive. The next method is the alcohol soap or the powdered sugar wash. Both of those, you use a jar with a screen on the top, and how many, just by the show of hands, how many use the alcohol or the sugar method? Because that's usually the majority, yeah. The alcohol, I read an article that said you have to use 70% or stronger alcohol to get the best mite count, and it's the most accurate because it not only kills the bees, but it kills the mites, and you can wash the mites off of the bees easier, and so you'll have a more accurate count. The same article said if you use the powdered sugar, you can always add about 20 or 30% count to your mites, because that's about how many still stay on the bees that don't fall off. So if you just kind of keep that rough in your mind, then that's what you end up with.
So how many of you want to do it but haven't ever done it and are nervous about it? Okay, you want to walk through it really quick?
Yeah, I can do it real quick.
Yeah.
So you'll take a frame of bees, and you want to make sure you don't have
Your queen.
your
on it.
queen. Yeah, you want to look and make sure, and it's the nurse bee, so you're in the brood area of your hive, and you'll look and make sure you don't have the queen, and you'll take that frame and you just shake it real hard into something to catch the bees with. You'll shake them down into the corner. You'll take a half a cup of those bees, which is approximately.
Your forager bees fly off. Your nurse bees
Stay in the hive.
stay right in there. It's really
Yeah,
easy.
they just clump down in the bottom corner of your container, and then you take a half a cup and scoop it in and put your lid on quickly. And then for the powdered sugar, you take 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar, dump it in, and then you shake it. I put the regular lid in so that I don't get powdered sugar going everywhere. Same with the alcohol. And you shake them and you set them off the side for a couple minutes in the shade. Don't leave them in the sun. They'll cook. Okay, so that's the powdered sugar. And then when you get ready to find out how many mites you have, I have another white container that I just put the screen, and you use an 1/8" screen. If you use window screen, it's too small. So you have to use an 1/8" screen. And you just shake and shake and shake, and the powdered sugar comes through, and the mites will come into the bottom of the white container, put a little water in it to dissolve the powdered sugar, and then you can count the mites. So you'll take that count of mites, say you got 10 mites, divide that by 300, because that's how many bees you've got around in a half a cup. So what's the percentage of mites in your hive? Huh? 10 mites to 300 bees. 3%. So do you treat your mites with 3% mites in your hive?
3% and above, you treat, or?
What do you say? If you've got 10 mites, do you treat your hive?
Yes, because there's probably 30 more that you didn't get.
Absolutely. So, if you use the alcohol method, you put the bees in, you fill it up with alcohol, instant death. And you swish that around, swish it around, you leave the screen on, dump the alcohol out, put water in, swish it around some more, dump it out, put water in again, swish it around, and then you can count the mites. And you'll have more mites in your alcohol wash than you do with your powdered sugar. I quit using alcohol because I hate killing 300 bees. Because when you're done with the powdered sugar, you just open the lid and put the bees back on the top of your hive, and the other bees come and eat the powdered sugar off of them, and
They look like ghost bees.
they look like ghost bees, yeah.
So that's how I haven't ever treated my hive before. In the fall, I was told to like kind of dump powdered sugar, like I just blew powdered sugar on them to train them to kind of treat the mites off of each other. And I haven't found it, and I mean, I'm sure I have.
I can guarantee you've got mites in
Oh,
your
I'm
hive.
sure I do.
Yeah.
I just haven't.
Now my hands are
seen
sticky.
or experienced it. But is that effective? Should I be doing that at all, or should I just be doing another one? Okay.
Yep. That's the way my friend does it in Tooele, and his hives have never lasted the winter, because that's called the naturalist way of treating for mites, is using just sprinkling powdered sugar on the top of your hive. Yeah. So, do you treat new packages or nukes? I was told no when I first became a beekeeper. So do you treat them? You've got a brand new package of bees, you put it in a brand new box, a brood box. It's going to take them 3 weeks, 4 weeks before they start having brood that's matured in the hive. Do you need to treat them?
You need to test them and then treat them.
You always test. Well, yeah, you always test.
After how long? Your nuke, after, when should I test them?
When you get a nuke is coming from an existing hive.
Right.
I would test my nuke after a few weeks. After they started to be established in your hive, I would test on the nuke.
Some come pre-treated.
Some come pre-treated. Some they treat before.
And your seller will let you know that.
Yeah. Was your nuke treated? Do you know?
I have no idea, they didn't say.
Yeah.
A lot of times you'll find like a plastic strip in it.
Yeah.
Is it harmful to treat when there's not a high mite count, like if you're under 3%?
We're gonna talk about that in a minute. Okay. So there are all kinds of chemical treatments out there to treat your bees. You can go out and there is formic acid, there's oxalic acid, there's
Apivar.
Apivar. I think that's formic acid, isn't it? Apivar.
Mitaway is.
Oh, it's Mitaway's formic acid. So there's all kinds. You got Apistan, Apivar, Checkmite, Apilife, Apigard, Formic Pro, Hopguard, Mitaway, Quick Strips, and oxalic acid. And they're quite expensive. When you go out to buy them, they're quite expensive. You can spend a lot of money on mite treatment, okay? So whatever you select, though, you need to make sure you follow those instructions meticulously, because heat has an effect on some of the different mite treatments. They'll say, do not treat your mites if it's going to get over 80 degrees. It becomes ineffective, or it'll sterilize your queen. And that's not a very good thing to do. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. I was told you should alternate your treatment.
Yes, you should.
This year I switched to mic strips.
Okay,
And I felt like it made my bees a lot more aggressive. Anyone else ever seen that before?
that happens.
Okay.
Yep, they don't like it. They don't like it, okay? So oxalic acid. Oxalic acid is a treatment that they have found that bees, it does not harm your bees, but it's deadly for mites, and the mites do not develop an immunity to the oxalic acid. And oxalic acid is a natural chemical in your hive anyway. It's organic. And last year, the FDA approved the use of oxalic acid right up through honey harvest, and you can still market your honey, which is the only chemical treatment you can use and still market your honey. So there's different types of oxalic acid treatments. You've got the smoke treatment. Okay, how many have used this, the vaporizer? If anybody wants to buy mine, it's for sale. Okay, I'd be happy to sell it to you. It's very caustic.
Makes two.
There's, oh, you got one too?
I got one up there.
You got, yeah.
No, I'm just saying, that makes two of them that are for sale.
Yeah.
So I got
I'll
one.
add mine
Well,
up there.
and here's a new one. Has any of you seen this as a vaporizer?
It's actually pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. I bought that. It cost me 80 bucks. Bought it a couple years ago. You take... Anyway, the top comes off. You put a teaspoon of oxalic acid crystals in it. You take your propane torch, and it screws in so your torch head sticks in there. It heats this up, vaporizes the oxalic acid, and you just put it in your hive. And so you can just put it in this hive, put it in this hive, put it in this hive, and then when it's out, you take the top off, put another teaspoon in. But oxalic acid in the vaporizing form, you've got to wear a respirator and you got to have gloves on because it is very caustic to you. Oh yeah, and you got to use eye protection because it's very caustic to you. You'll end up in the hospital. It'll burn your lungs and your eyes. Yeah, Daniel.
Example, one guy had one of those vaporizers blow up in his face. He had to let his corneas re-heal.
Great.
Wow.
And there's been lots of hives started on fire with these.
Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one out there with Sam's signature on it.
Yes.
So the vaporizing method.
So those ones similar, you just hook it up to a battery.
Yeah.
Put your teaspoon of OA in the little cup thing there. Stick it in the bottom part of your hive. Let it vaporize.
Takes about 4 minutes. You have to time it, and the vapor will start to come out. And then you have to do it every 3 days, 3 different times, every 4 days.
7 days.
Oh, every 7 days. 3 times every 7 days.
Basically your brood.
You're
break.
wanting to, yes, get your brood to hatch, treat it. Get your brood to hatch, treat it because it does not permeate that membrane.
It does not permeate into the cap. Yeah.
Through
So
the
you have
wax.
to, huh?
Through the wax, which is why the FDA approved the honey
Yeah.
sale, because it's not getting through
It's
the
not
wax.
getting
Right.
into the wax. So this is the drip method where you make an, yes, ma'am.
Really quick, you don't have one of the Provats up there, which,
The what?
the Provats,
Proval,
that's what I use, and you're awesome.
that's what I have.
Okay.
Nope, never used one of those.
Well, no, actually, I got one from a guy who made it, I got it for 150 bucks.
Oh,
There's a couple on the market that you get cheaper than the Provat, that's just.
So how does it work?
Generic.
Electricity plugs in, it's
Same concept as the one
Oh,
that
it's
takes the
sa-
propane.
It's similar
Oh,
to that
similar to
one,
this?
but you can
but it uses electricity.
You can cycle hive to hive every 60 seconds,
Oh.
basically.
Well, I'll make somebody a really good deal on this one.
Oh, that's really the
You
best.
can go through the front.
This is the drip method. So you put your oxalic acid mixture in this, and then you just squirt it right down in between your brood.
5
Frames.
cc's to each, between each
Yep.
brood frame.
And that's pretty effective.
5. So it's oxalic acid glycerin and some water, and I think I put the recipe in there.
Yeah, the recipe's in the,
Okay,
I've never used it. So
I've
The-
used it a lot.
the towel and sponge method, it's easy, it's safe, it's effective. I've been doing it for 3 years. You put it in your hive. I leave it in 24/7, 365. And I don't have any mites.
As
And
witnessed by
it's cheap.
Jenna.
What's that?
As witnessed by Jenna Crowder.
As witnessed by Jenna Crowther last fall when she came and did my hive check, and she tested my 3 hives, and she could see these sponges on. She said, "What are those?" And I said, "Those are oxalic acid sponges." And she said, "Tell me about it." I learned about it through Scientific Beekeeper, and they used the blue shop towels. And then at the end of his article, he says that he started to use the Swedish sponges. The blue shop towels, the bees will chew those up and take them out of the hive, and it takes about 30 days, and they'll take the shop towel and just chew it up and take it out. Where the Swedish sponges, they don't seem to bother much. And so I put them in the fall, I take them out in the spring, put fresh ones in. In the fall, I take out the ones I put in the spring, put in fresh ones, and I just leave them in the hive all year round, yeah.
So how often do you refill the sponges every time you just check your hive?
I just pull them out and put fresh ones in.
If you
How
go to
often?
Scientific
Oh.
Beekeeper, he's got the studies in there, and if you're a person that really likes the science, it's interesting because he's got hundreds of hives that he's tested them on, and they are good for, he's got 40 days on there.
Yeah, yeah.
So you only change them twice a year, spring and fall?
I do it 3 times a year. I do it in the spring, I do it in the spring, and then I put them in, they dry out in the summer, so about August when I check, I'll pull them out, put fresh ones in, and then in November when I do my final hive inspection before winter, I pull out those and put them in again.
Where do they go in the hive?
I put 2 at the end. I cut mine up into thirds. So these are mine. So I cut mine up. I'm gonna borrow your glove.
Okay.
Because last time I handled them and then I was at your house when I touched them and I rubbed my eye. So, is that one already done?
Well, this has got better gloves.
Oh, I see.
Except it's medium, your hands are
No, that's all right, I'll
probably
just
big.
use these. So have you got the regular size Swedish sponge in there? Do you have a normal size one? Okay, so you can just visualize it. Huh?
Amazon.
Just buy them from Amazon. So I take, so they're about 1/8 of an inch thick, and I make the mixture of the oxalic acid, and then I put 2 at the entrance, and they don't have any odor. I just put 2 in the entrance, and then I put 3 on the top of my first brood box, and 3 on the top of my second brood box, and I just leave them there.
You can have them on when the honeysuckers.
Yep, I just leave them on, yeah.
Would you repeat that? You put 2 at the entrance?
Yeah, I just slide them in the entrance, so they climb, they have to walk over them when they come in and out of the hive. Then I put 3 on the top of the first brood box, and if I don't have another brood box, I just do those 3. And then I put 3 on the top of the second brood box. And then I'll put my queen excluder on, and then I'll put my supers on top.
So you flame right on top of this?
Just lay them right on top.
Yeah,
Right.
Scientific
Yeah.
Beekeeper just tears it in half and then he puts them on top of his brood box.
Do you have to pin them down on the bottom
No.
board?
Nope,
They don't pull them out?
no, they don't.
They do not bother this cellulose.
They
That's
do
one thing
not
that,
bother them.
Sold the Scientific Beekeeper on it. In addition, these Swedish towels really
Yeah.
soak up the chemical of that OA glycerin mixture so that it has a lot of, it has the right amount of chemical.
Yeah, and I've got to go rinse my hands because I got them on this towel.
So you say you literally get flame right on top of the
Yes.
thing?
Yes.
Yeah, so here, there's a picture of them here. I'll show you how I make them too.
How wet do you get them?
I'll tell you that,
We're gonna
okay?
show you the recipe. Before you go,
So this is a vaporized method. There's the dribble. And there's the recipe for the dribble, and this will be on the website. And then this is the sponge. That's a whole sponge.
Right.
And so they retain their strength for a couple months, and then they just, according to Scientific Beekeeper, then they just start to degrade a little bit in the amount of chemical that's in them. But instead of going and taking, I just leave them in, and I don't have any mites. I checked my hive this year. The 3 hives I had this spring, I opened them up, checked them. I had 1 mite in 1 hive. The other 2 hives were mite-free. Now that's using the powdered sugar.
That's even with your honey supers on.
Yeah, yeah, yep. So there's different ways of doing it. The recipe is 1-to-1. So I have a little digital scale, and I'll weigh it out so that you've got the glycerin oil and the oxalic acid, and I buy them off of Amazon. And you get 2 of these bottles of 500 milliliters each, I think. Yep. And then this 2 pounds of oxalic acid. So I've got a little wood shop. My wife won't let me do this in the kitchen. So I have a little burner and a piece of tile, and I bought a pan from DI. I have a candy thermometer. I have my trusty dusty wooden spoon, piece of stick, and I put everything in the pan and heat it up, and you don't want it to vaporize. And so I stir it and watch it until all of a sudden it just goes clear. It's kind of a miracle. It just goes clear. Yeah, and that's at about between 140 and 150 degrees. And as soon as it goes clear, I take it off the heat, off the pan, and the sponges almost fit exactly in the pan. So I take about 10 sponges and I just push them in, and then I got a pair of tongs. I pick them up, turn them over, and then I take, because you want to get the absorption into the middle as well, I take them in half and then turn them over, and I just let them sit in the pan. And it absorbs all the way through into all those sponges. And then I cut them in thirds and put them in double Ziploc bag. And then when I go into my hives, I've got them all ready to go. And that is really inexpensive treatment for your mites. Yes, sir?
How long do they last in the Ziploc bags? Like, you take just a bunch and bolt one day, like how long?
I made these in the spring, and I'll use them all. I'll use them in the fall if I, yeah.
I made mine last fall, and they were still good this spring.
Yeah, they last a long time.
As long as they're not out to the air.
Yeah, that's why I double Ziploc them.
So they don't catch fire like the blue towel. I think I've heard blue towels catching on fire with that mixture. Has anyone else heard that?
No.
That's just me. Okay.
No, and according to the Scientific Beekeeper, he didn't say anything about it.
Okay.
So, but that's what I do for my hives. This is my 3rd year. I've gone through 2 winters. I've not lost a hive in the winter. And I attribute it to no mites, because they're going into the fall healthy. Okay?
So Jen, remind me, so Scientific Beekeeper has 500, so 500 grams of OA to 500 milliliters of...
500 grams of each.
Yeah, it's 500 milliliters or 500 grams. My scale doesn't have grams, it has milliliters. So I do 500 milliliters and 500 milliliters.
I do grams.
Okay. And then you get, like Ron said, just heat it up, and then you take 6 of the Swedish towels and put it in there.
Is it 6? You use 6?
I do, yeah.
I
Well,
think-
this year, actually, I put more in, I still had so much liquid that
That's-
I think I did
I
10.
just put more.
So for the ones that I made for you guys, I did 6, but like Jen says, there's more liquid in there that we could have added another sponge
I
to
did
it.
add more this last time. but-
Yeah.
Yeah, you just need to make sure it's all soaked up.
It is.
So what
Yeah.
point do you cut yours in half?
As soon as I
When I pull it out of there, he cuts them ahead of time.
cut them up, as soon as they're cool enough to handle, I cut them up and put them in Ziploc bags.
I take them out of there and just tear them in half at my hive and set them on my frames.
And I cut them up before I make them.
There's 3 opinions.
Yeah, so like I say, there you go.
6 different ways.
And see, this guy, he mixes it up in the microwave, which I thought, that is dangerous because you may overheat it in the microwave and vaporize it, and you open the microwave, you're gonna end up on the floor. And then he dumps it on his. He's crazy.
He is Swedish.
He's Swedish. Yeah.
Do you wear any, do you wear any eye protection or anything like that?
I usually have glasses on, and I usually always have gloves on when I'm doing it.
I wear gloves.
If you watch your temperature, and honestly, I am watching there, and like Ron says, and Jen will attest to it, because I'm like to Jen, it's clearish, it's not.
But then it does go clear.
It does, it just goes clear.
Yes, and then I take it, he puts his towels in the pan, which I'm going to do next time, but I have my towels in this, and if you have freezer Ziplocs, they handle the heat, and I just dumped it in here and worked them to get it to absorb.
I just had some tongs, I just put them in my pan and turned them over until it was all absorbed up and let them sit there till it was cool enough that I could handle them, then I cut them up. It ruins your scissors unless you want, that oxalic acid just eats that metal right up on your scissors, so you gotta wash them off.
Then we should go with what Mike does and
Cut them up first. That's a good idea. So that's what I do. I have become a firm believer of using the oxalic acid sponges. I am very grateful. I read that article in the Scientific Beekeeper, and it saved me a lot of money, it saved me a lot of grief. I only test my mites now if I feel like it, because I know I'm not going to have any mites, and it's healthy for the bees, or it's not unhealthy for the bees, I should say. Yes, sir.
Sorry, so when you're checking your frames for just patterns and what's going on inside, when you do a hive check, you just take the sponges off, put them on the top of the other hive, and put them back in when you're done.
Yep, that's exactly what I do. Yep. Now the one thing I was going to tell you, I screwed up this year. I took a frame when I tested my hives, and it had nectar in it, and I shook it out. All the bees were covered in nectar. And so when I put the powdered sugar on it, I just made a big mess. So make sure, that was a rookie mistake, make sure you don't grab a frame that's full of nectar and shake it into your bucket, because it just makes a big sticky mess. And a lot of bees are unhappy because you just stole their nectar.
So up before this year, I have done the OA drip method and been successful with it. There are some syringes on the back table that I had some extras if anybody wants to do it. It is, again, like the shop towel, it is very safe, but you need to administer it 3-10 days apart, because we want to get the brood coming out, right? It's not going to be permeable into those cells, so we want to catch each brood cycle, so do it 3 times. So again, like Ron says, hit them in the spring, winter after it gets warm enough, then at the end of summer, and then in the fall before winter. So I'm going to tell you this quick on the recipe. If you want to do the OA drip, it's simple. Same thing, get the pan, measure out your ingredients, stir, 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 and then you've got it in a jar, and then you just draw it up in your syringe. I use those 60 cc syringes, and I just take one whole syringe and I divvy it between the frames. So for a quart, you ready? You're going to do 179 milliliters of glycerin, 568 milliliters of water, and 41.7 grams of OA.
The sponges are a lot easier.
Read that again, please.
Okay, 41.7 grams of OA, 568 milliliters of water, and 379 milliliters of glycerin.
Okay, you read it back. What was the word for the OA?
The OA is 41.7 grams.
This is for the drip?
This is for the drip.
Okay.
And, you know, if you've been to any of our meetings, you know that I'm a Lee Knight student. And he is a commercial beekeeper. He has like the backpack, like you go bee spraying weeds, like if you're a weed man. he takes that backpack, he pops his commercial frames and shh, lid on. Next hive, shh, lid on. So that's a quick and down and dirty, easy way for him to
That's really
treat
easy.
Yeah.
inexpensively.
For a lot of hives.
Because, I mean, the people that ended up buying, so those of you that aren't members, you didn't see this, but if you are a member, it came out on our email to our group. We made some of these shop towels, and a few people took advantage of it. And so the expense, well, all of it, so all of this cost $20, but it's like these shop towels, you start adding up when you start buying things for your bees, but yeah. Anyway, yeah.
So you had to have bought those beforehand, before we came to?
Yes, so the deadline was the 5th.
Oh, because Ron told us that we were gonna make them.
He was going to demo them
He's demoing.
there, yeah, just demo it. So we had, if you were on it came out on the group email feed, and everybody had until the 5th to sign up so I could get stuff. Even in that amount of time, I haven't got all my product from Amazon, and so I have a couple of people that I owe shop towels, or owe Swedish towels to.
What's the email, please, I'm sorry.
So it comes out, are you a member of the,
Yes, she is.
so why didn't,
Well, you're friendly, like you just signed up, so she just
Oh,
hasn't.
okay.
The letter just-
yeah, it came out on so once, at the beginning of the month, if you're a member, you get the
Newsletter.
members newsletter, and then we send out things additionally through the month to our email group. If you're a member, it comes out to you, so yeah, that was something this month.
So how much water for these sponges?
For the oxalic acid
For
sponge?
this sponge, it is equal parts, so it's 500, 500.
No water.
But no
No water.
No water, no water.
No water.
No.
Oxalic
You can come and
acid.
take a picture of this.
Yes.
Just come and take a picture of this and you'll see what it is. Yeah, here,
Yeah.
pass it around. It's simple and it's inexpensive. That's the thing that's so nice, is it's so easy and inexpensive. Yes, sir.
So,
So I have I just installed 2 new packages into boxes that were used last year that I froze in my freezer to try to.
Good for you. That's a great thing to do.
But,
Have room?
one at a time. Anyway, my question is, packages are, what, 2 weeks old this Saturday, I
Yeah.
think? Or, yeah. And, should I just go ahead and do this Swedish sponge thing right away, or would you wait a little bit?
It's up to you. I'd go ahead and just put them in.
Okay,
It doesn't hurt anything to do it.
sure.
It's,
I
and
have
it,
a feisty hive, it seems, and I'm thinking that I don't know, I'll just have to work quickly, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Feisty hive.
One of my hives.
Yeah,
is
Jen.
feisty.
So I can't remember, because you put your sponges, you put more in than I
yes.
do. You've kind of gone rogue and put them at the entrance. But do you remember how many he actually
He usually
recommends?
uses one sponge.
just one
Okay,
sponge.
that's what I cut it in half and
Yes.
kind of like the former.
Yes.
Okay. I just I couldn't remember what the original.
Well, when I had that one hive that had 68 mites,
Yeah.
I didn't want to deal with that again. So I go a little overboard.
I like it. I like the idea.
Yeah.
I think I'll copy it.
When you use the sponges, 'cause I don't got one hive that I'm having a mic issue with, how fast do the sponges clear the issue up?
I don't know. When I had my high mite count, I did the oxalic acid vapor plus the sponges plus formic acid. I figured I was either going to kill the hive or kill the mites, and one way, I was going to get them. And when I did the vapor, I did it every 3 days for 10 days. I did it.
Yeah, and think about the science of this behind this. So the sponges will last for 40 days, right? But you want to hit those brood cycles. You've got to get those drones. They like to be in the drone cells because the drones take the longest to develop in that cell. And so the mites are in there just sucking away, having a wee time in there. So you've got to get everybody hatched and repeat.
You're gonna go through 2 cycles
Yeah.
in those 40 days, so you should get rid of those mites.
So do you wanna get rid of your drones? If you're in
No,
there
we
and you
need
see
drones.
Whenever I open my hive and I'm looking at my frames, I'll take my tool and just peel off the top of my drone sill. I hate them. All that they do is eat the honey and the nectar in your hive. And there's enough drones out there that
Oh, there's a lot of drones.
we don't have to worry about it. Huh?
Not around you.
Well, I just opened a hive today and I had probably 3 or 4 dozen drone cells on one side, and
They love to put them too between the frames, kind of. So you pull a frame out and then all these drone cells rip apart and you got larvae falling out.
that's all right because they eat it. That's protein. They'll love it. Okay, so you know my attitude on drones. Anyway, so any questions about new packages, new hives, introduction, catching swarms? I caught a swarm last week that was right next to my hive, which was nice.
Tell me how to catch a swarm.
Didn't you see the? Oh, did you see our video?
What if you can't find the queen?
I don't worry about it. I just put it in, and then after a while, I
So I
looked
got
in. So
a
I don't
swarm
ever look for
last
a
week
queen.
and I got in today and I had no eggs and I have frames in there for her to lay. There's nothing. But like Mike pointed out, she'd be a virgin and she needed to go out on her mating flight. She could have gotten eaten by the robins that are in my yard, a number of different things, but I think I'm going to buy a queen and put in there.
After I checked my swarm today, actually I checked it yesterday, and she had larvae and there was a few
How
cap
many
cells.
days have you had her?
It was a week ago Monday that I caught her, so it's been 10 days.
So if you can't find the queen, how do you get those bees in your hive?
Well, I don't never look for, I have a hard time finding a queen, so I just don't.
What if you?
We did
let's
find
say
what
you
at crystals
can't
though.
find her to entice them in the hive with.
Drop
How do
them
you
into
get
the
all
box.
Just put them in the box and don't worry about it, they should stay there. And just, yeah.
those- Just back them in the box?
Yep.
Yeah,
So
the guy
like,
on
did you see that video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the knothead should have opened up the top of the box.
Yeah, open that box. And
Take
then
some
as
of
you
the
take
frames out.
branch And it drops, all those bees would have dropped right in that box.
Yeah, you
could've
take
had-
half the frames out though, don't.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Just like you're doing a package, only it's not in a package, it's wrapped around a tree branch.
Mine was in 2 different sections of pallets, and so I had to pick the pallets up and shake
So
them.
do you wait around for a while, like so the bees can come and find them?
Yeah, I waited for 2 hours after I put mine in because they were flying all over, and it was next door, so I just left them there. And after the
And I put a little cotton ball of swarm attractant in there also.
Like lemongrass oil? or-
You
Yes.
can
Yeah, that
lemongrass
works.
or the swarm commander.
Okay, any other questions? If anybody's got any interest, I've got 2 nukes and a hive that
Oh, you reminded me.
I'm willing to sell if anybody's interested. And
Okay,
the queen, these daughters, the mom, or
Is
the
prolific.
Oh my gosh, she's an amazing
layer.
layer. Yeah.
Okay, the association has one Italian nuke. IFA, if you saw from our group and on Facebook, IFA donated 2 nukes. One of them has been taken, so we have an Italian left. And we dropped the price to $130, but for the group here tonight, we're dropping to $100 so that we can get this
Wow.
nuke in a home, and that's a killer price. Yeah, so.
I'll take your hive, Ron.
You'll take one of my hives? Okay, great.
Do you have it with you, or do we have to get it?
Oh, no, and I'm gonna be gone. No, I'm not gonna be gone tomorrow through next Thursday night, so it'll be next weekend.
Next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
that's fine. Anything else we want to discuss? Wow, 1 hour, that's
I
great.
know you had a question, come on.
I have lots of
I
Okay.
live
Yeah.
in Missouri, and so I've been trying to reassociate, like, it's a lot different here trying to do bees than when I was still back in Missouri. This year, I'm the one that posted the 3D thing on the website with like asking how different people do it. During the winter, because I've never had to like do as much to winter my hives as I had to do this year here, but my queen moved into the top of my hives, because I figured that's probably where it's the warmest. And so how do you get her to move back down?
Take that box and put it in the bottom.
Down? Okay. And so, I just wanted to make sure, that's what I did. I was like, okay, do you guys do anything to prevent that from happening, or is that just normal, like every year you rotate like that? Okay. I was just curious, because we never had to do that.
Some people do, some people don't. I don't rotate mine, but a lot of people do. I'm lazy.
I do a single deep box with a queen excluder above it. Don't leave your queen excluder on out of laziness with honey above it, because they will leave the queen behind. Just saying that.
Yeah, they go up where it's warm and the queen stays, yeah.
You need to take your queen excluder off for the winter.
Yeah. You had a question?
I just would love some advice on what the heck is happening with my hive. Like, I started my first hive last spring early, and it was awesome all summer long. Numbers were great. Everything was looking awesome. Survived the winter, just opened it up, and it was just packed full. I mean, just packed. And so I kept thinking, oh man, here we go. The weather gets warm. I was waiting, cold, hot. It's gonna swarm. I've got to divide this, but I wasn't sure how to do it. So a friend of mine that knew how to do it, she came out 3 weeks ago, and we divided my hive.
Did a walkaway split?
We found a queen cell, and we saw a queen actually emerging.
Cool.
And so it was so awesome. She was so pretty. And so we took her and a frame of brood and eggs and moved just a bunch of frames over, had the 2 hives, and that was good. I hadn't moved anything. And then my family and I went on vacation, and our neighbors called and said, your hives are swarming. And so, so I don't know what happened. But today, so came home, and there's been bees in both of them. Opened yesterday, there was just chaos in my original hive, and I opened it up to see what was going on, and like 80% of it were drones, and it looked like I had robber bees like crazy. There was a ton of, just looks like sawdust in the bottom. And
yes, robbing.
Just ripped.
They're capping you.
Kind of ripped
They're
up.
uncapping your honey.
Yes, and I had tons of, I hadn't
Yes.
harvested at all this last year. I wanted to make sure they had enough food to
They're
make
so
the
happy
winter.
that you didn't.
And so it's just
So that hive
3
sound,
deep,
that
full
hive
of-
sounds like you're robbed out.
And so then today, I had a swarm in my backyard, and I don't know where it came from, if it was my new one. So that was the other thing, is that yesterday, so I had the robber bees, and then a whole bunch of chaos, opened the hive. I took out some of the honey, and just took some of the frames of honey out. I went back in the evening to see if things had calmed down, and there was my sweet queen at the entrance of the hive, dead.
They
With
killed her.
a bunch around her. And I was like, oh my heavens, what has happened? And so I didn't know, I don't know what has happened. And then a swarm today, and I don't know if it came from the old hive, I don't know if it's the new hive. So I just had my nuke box that they had originally come in. So I took them, and that's where they are right now. And so now I have 2 hives that have bees. I don't know what is happening. Hopefully the new one that I split with the queen.
Where do you
and is
live?
Good in East
North
Lehigh.
Lehigh, yeah, North East Lehigh.
Oh, you're our neighbor.
Yeah.
If I was gonna be around the next week, I'd come, but I'm
I
not.
have 2 questions about this.
But I don't know what to do with the swarm now. Do I put,
Put it in
No.
the hive, they got robbed out maybe. Or
Do I put it in the-
Not yet.
so
Okay, so,
I thought, do I keep,
Mike's a Lehigh person.
okay,
okay, so we're gonna take, and I'm gonna ask some questions,
okay.
and I need you to just answer those questions, don't go any farther.
Do you like beehives?
Do you like honey?
When you first originally did your split, did you take brood and eggs and queen cells with the queen?
Not queen cells,
But you took eggs?
yes.
Okay, shouldn't have done that.
Okay.
When you're doing a walk-away split, you are deliberately inducing or making everybody understand it is a swarm.
Oh,
So you take the queen, new hive, bees, in the new hive, everything remains.
So no eggs, no brood.
No eggs, no brood, no nothing. They're now in the new hive. You then close that hive down with hardware cloth at the front, so the bees can't come back out for 3 days. Then they reorient to that new location. Okay? So
See,
that
that's
was,
what we did too
that was
much.
probably mistake number one, is you put, because those bees are in the mindset of, we need to make new queens. So what you did by taking the brood over, these bees still had the resources to make new queens. You understand, follow me? These bees that are, they're making new queens, they already had new queens there, queen cells you said. With these eggs over here now, these bees are still in that mindset, make new queen. They don't understand they're in a new location yet, and they have the resources to induce that swarm, they're gonna do it. So 7 to 10 days later,
Do
I'll,
you think the swarm came from the new hive?
I don't know.
When I opened it up yesterday,
So she's had 2 swarms.
They're
So
doing
she had the one
amazing.
swarm that I got
Like,
last
there was all
week.
the new queen that was in the split hive. She is laying like, I mean, I put some empty frames, they built out all new, and she is all, I mean, over 150 in just one, like,
Okay.
she's just crazy.
So make sure that you keep her happy with the space that she has.
Okay,
7 frames drawn out, add another box.
okay,
7, more frames, 7 to 10 more frames drawn out, add another box.
okay,
Make sure you don't give her or stifle her in the space,
okay.
okay? You said something else about, tell me the story again slowly. You split it,
So the old hive is the one that I feel like was full of drones.
Okay.
And that I think had raw rubies.
okay, more than likely that absconded. They swarmed off because you.
Because of the raw rubies.
Well, because of the robber bees and that they were queenless and they were kind of lost.
Okay.
It sounds like that's could be.
Probably have a lane worker that's creating.
Well, I don't know about a lame worker,
How-
but
She
how-
had the queen dead at the entrance, so.
the queen was dead. She
robbers
may
can
not have
go in
gotten
and
out
kill
because of the
her.
weather.
But what creates the drones?
And, huh?
If she has a whole bunch of drone cells in there, somebody had to lay eggs to create the drone cells.
The laying worker could, she
Yeah.
could still be laying eggs that obviously she doesn't have any genetic material to fertilize them, so
Yeah.
they're, because if she didn't get out and do her mating flight, they didn't like her, they killed her.
Yeah, I had that happen with mine last year.
I was trying to figure out if that was a new queen that they had made that was dead, or I can't figure out if there's a queen still in there somewhere, and,
Then you hatched a couple of different.
or if I
queens.
just need to go in and wipe it out.
Yeah, don't forget, they made more than one queen.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's possible that queen was just the weaker of the sisters and she got killed by one of the other sisters.
Right.
Because it's gonna be survival of the fittest when they hatch out, right?
So it's 3 weeks ago.
So I'm just trying to figure out if.
Yeah.
When you moved everybody from that mother hive to a nuke box, right?
So the swarm today is in a nuke box, but
Is-
I don't actually know where the swarm came from.
Okay.
I have no idea, so I have still the original.
Mother hive.
I didn't do anything with I took out a bunch of honey from the one that I thought was being lost. And then just put the top back on
How
and
many,
then also.
how many boxes do you have on that hive that's getting robbed out?
3.
You have 3
Well, there's
boxes.
the new connection on top.
Hey, just a minute. I have to excuse myself.
Too much space.
I've got a wedding I'm supposed to
Too
be
much
to
space
with my
there,
wife.
Kevin.